Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast, a place where we explore the world of horror and mystery in film, television, books, and popular culture. Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome to another show. My name is Bruce Markison. Once again, I'm joined by co-host and producer Tracy Asteria. Tracy, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, Bruce, and I'm looking forward to tonight's guest. How's everything going with you?
Everything is going fine, except for some technical difficulties on my end. As usual, I'm the problem. This is going to be a no-nonsense broadcast, though. We're going to get right into it. No small talk. We're going to get right to our guest for this week. We're very pleased to have with us actor, writer, and very importantly, baseball fanatic Ellen Adair. Compiling more than 40 credits in film and TV, Ellen has starred in such horror movies as Trick, Herd, and Cryptid, had a recurring role in a show I really like, the excellent TV series The Sinner, Season 2, and also appears in the current hit film The Housemaid, which I just saw about a week ago. And Ellen also happens to be a major baseball fan, an expert on baseball-themed movies. In fact, Ellen co-hosts the podcast Take Me Into the Ballgame, which examines baseball films, which I love very much as well. Ellen, thank you for your time with us. Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery. How are you?
Oh, I am doing so well, era adjusted, and it is such a pleasure to be here with you, Bruce and Tracy. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I just want to apologize for the very aggressive New York radiator that you hear in the background. It will go off and then it will go on again, but it is not, in fact, my apartment filling with water or a bevy of snakes, both of which would maybe feel horror appropriate, but indeed, just blasting that New York City heat.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I was just down in New York City earlier today, and they were hit with a pretty significant snowstorm over this past weekend, about 5 or 6 inches, it seemed. So I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of the cold and the snow. And speaking of New York City and speaking of the Northeast, you grew up in the Philadelphia area, but you grew up in a household without a television set in it, which I find very interesting. So how exactly from there did you become interested in films and in acting?
Wow, you've really done your research. Yes, this is a key fact about me. It is one of the main reasons why I am so weird, is that I grew up without a television, and so that also meant that I couldn't watch movies at home. My parents are both academics, so that was it. Sometimes people are like, "Were you Amish? You know, you are from Pennsylvania." But no, it was just that they had the feeling that if that was in the house, that my brain would rot, and so we were allowed to go out and see movies. And I watched TV sometimes at friends' houses, but my exposure to it was slight. And this means a sort of, I want to say, a low cultural literacy, but maybe just like a different cultural literacy. There's other things that I'm like, well, certainly everybody knows this, that other people are like, no, actually, everybody doesn't know Waiting for Godot. Because that's the kind of household that I was raised in by two academics. So what was your exact question again? Oh, how did this happen? How did this crazy thing happen? So I grew up always wanting to be an actor and was exposed to theater from a very early age. I know that my parents took me to see a production of Twelfth Night when I wasn't yet in elementary school. And the reason that I remember this is because they had the idea that they could bring me to Kenneth Branagh's Henry V, the movie, in the theaters when I was in first grade. And they knew that I would like it because I had already liked Shakespeare before. And I did. I loved it. Like, it was the first thing that I saw that didn't totally terrify me. I think I had seen some other things that were maybe more like age appropriate, but like totally terrified by every Disney movie that I had ever seen, terrified by The Princess Bride. And then I watched Kenneth Branagh's Henry V, and I was like, now this is my stuff. I'm so weird. So I knew that I wanted to be an actor, and there are also actors in my mom's side of the family. My grandmother was an actor, and my aunt Adair is also an actor. And Adair is secretly my middle name. So yeah, her name is not Adair. Adair, that would be very strange. So I grew up idolizing both of them. They're not necessarily people that you would have seen in anything. They mostly did theater. So for me, my focus was also theater. Like that's what you do. And I grew up specifically loving Shakespeare and thinking like Shakespeare's really what I want to focus on. And in sort of the first half of my career, I did do a ton of Shakespeare. But also, so I went to school at Boston University and just stuck around in Boston after I graduated. I had an English degree, by the way, not a theater degree, because my parents were academics and they were like, you need a real degree. And I was like, fine, English. So anyway, I stuck around in Boston and just happened to book some TV while I was in Boston. This was I had booked a couple of PBS documentaries about old timey times people because that's me. Like I am an old timey times person. I'm not saying that's the better way to be. It just is what I am. And I also booked the Showtime series Brotherhood, and I was really intrigued by the scale of the performance in TV and film and how real it could be, and also intrigued by the requisite spontaneity of it. And so it honestly, it's very strange, but it wasn't until I was sort of on TV that then I was like interested in doing TV. So that's kind of how it started. Very long-winded answer.
But that's a great answer, though. I'm kind of curious. When you were growing up and early on in your career, did you have um, anybody specific that really encouraged you or inspired you to show you that your dream is such a possibility for you? Anybody that you looked up to or admired?
What a lovely question. I already had my aunt, as I mentioned, and so that was certainly, she was a role model for me, although she mostly does musical theater, has a wonderful singing voice. I do not. I am a single threat. That's how I identify. And but there was certainly a time as a child where I was like, I want to be, I want to do musicals like my Aunt Adair. And I also remember uh, a family friend, also a theater actor named Dale Hodges, who was an inspiration to me. And I do, it's funny. I think one of the earliest pieces of theater that I remember seeing, there was that 12th night, but we also saw a family friend in a like community theater production of The Mikado. And it was the first time that I saw somebody that I knew, because I did not grow up on the same coast as my aunt. So it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I ever got to actually see her perform. I saw somebody that I knew playing pretend. And it was so cool to me that like, oh, I know that person, but he's different when he's up there. And like, that's what I like to do. Like, I like to pretend to be other people. And you're telling me adults get to do this too? So that was very cool. I don't remember, honestly, a person sitting down with me and being like, your dream could be real. And honestly, I think my parents both study art, visual art, and have a real reverence for art of all kinds, but also a real sense of how hard the life of an artist was. And I think both of their perspectives is kind of like, well, little Ellen Adair, you should try this out because you'll be sorry if you don't try, but kind of assuming that like probably I wouldn't make it. And I think that was me also. I think I was like, yes, I just will be so sorry if I didn't at least make a valiant attempt. And like, here I am 20 years later. So.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind question.
It's interesting, Ellen. I'm going to bring up the names of two other actresses, both of whom have made horror films, as you have. So one is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is a huge fan of horror, grew up watching horror films. The other I'm thinking of is Adrienne Barbeau, who has been in many, many horror movies going back to the late 70s, early 80s. She was in the Fog, the first Creep Show. But she'll be the first to tell you she really doesn't like horror movies. She really kind of hates them, doesn't watch them, but does the films nonetheless. So you've made several horror films. Which category are you in? Fan of horror growing up or not a fan of horror?
I would say that I have had a Barbeau to Winstead journey. And yes, so I think because I grew up being mostly terrified by everything that I saw, like Ursula the Sea Witch, I think I still have a phobia of tentacled sea creatures because like I was so traumatized by that movie, I had to leave the theater. I was very young also, like it's also really scary. She becomes very large. Anyway, so I was very, very impressionable to the box or the screen with the moving pictures as a child. And I would say, honestly, that sort of carried over because I didn't have a television until 2010. Like, just to be clear, it's not like, oh, I didn't have one until I was 15 or something. Like, I really was well into my adulthood before I finally had a television. And so I often said, well, I should do horror movies because I am very easily scared, right? Like the ideas are very I don't know, I'm very porous to the ideas of them. And I still feel that way, but I wasn't somebody who felt like I could watch them very much because I just felt so terrified by them. Shall I tell you the story of the first horror movie that I saw?
Absolutely.
All right, Tracy is nodding. This was a mistake. So we were at I was at a slumber party, and the movie was Event Horizon. And like we were young, we were probably too young to be watching Event Horizon, but I was under the impression, and quite possibly, I would imagine that the mother of the girl whose birthday it was, who allowed her to rent Event Horizon, was also under the impression that it was a sci-fi movie. And like, you know, I was fine with sci-fi movies. So we put the movie in, and I was just completely scarred by that film. It's like, it's a pretty scary film. And it was just, I think it was years of my life before I did not see Sam Neill's face with his eyes gouged out in every darkness ever, right? Like it just terrified me. And so I was like, I do not like horror movies. I would prefer not to see that. And actually, of the horror movies that I do really love now, I'm still a little hesitant about devil possession movies like those. And I don't know if it's because I saw that movie. I don't know if it's because of just like the degree of my spiritual beliefs that I just kind of, it doesn't feel like totally make believe to me, that I am just very, very scared by that. Like would rather watch something else than that. So for example, like I know it's a brilliant film. I will get up the gumption at some point to see Hereditary, but I have not seen Hereditary yet, as an example. So anyway, so I was like, I don't like horror movies. Yeah. And then I was cast in Trick. Now, the irony of all those years of me saying I should really do horror movies because I would be very scared by the things is that like mostly I have not played the scared person in horror movies, which I appreciate. Like I actually would be happy to play a Scream Queen, but maybe it's just not quite my type. So the first couple of horror movies that I did, I was kind of the person who was like, I don't know, dude. You think so? And then I kind of played the queer action hero and some others. I'm not going to go into all of them because to describe some of them would be spoilers for people who might want to watch the films. But in any case, I will credit Patrick Lussier, the director of Trick, because I am a good student. And I said, Patrick, I'm very excited to do your movie. What other movies should I watch if I'm about to do this as homework? Like I love I get to watch stuff homework. And so he gave me some movies to watch, and some of them I really sort of squirmed my way through. And some of them I was like, this is actually really good and this is really fun. And I am scared, but I am also enjoying it. And my husband, I should mention, is a huge horror fan. And so he was trying for a long time to get me into watching more horror stuff. And I would always try. And I think because I've always liked genres that do have action in them, particularly if it's historical. Like I've always joked that my favorite genre of film is the people fighting with swords genre of film, like wheresoever that might span in historical action. And so it's not like, oh, I only love rom-coms. Like, I don't mind it, like if a movie gets a little violent. I think what I had to learn to live with is the suspense of knowing that like I'm about to be afraid. So I remember starting to watch The Walking Dead, and there was just some scene early on where they're all in the house and it's boarded up and you can hear zombies outside. No zombies are pictured. And I was just like, I'm too scared. I'm out. Right. Like in some ways, it's the idea of the thing that you don't see, but that you know is coming, that like now I'm like, yes, I love it so much. But like at the time, again, that was a while ago. And now I've just seen a lot more TV and film and just become in a good way a little bit more desensitized to it, just so that I can appreciate more genres. So yeah, now I love it. Now I love it. Again, there are some things that I'm like, oh, that's like a little more, hardcore than I think I need to see. And I think I do tend to most love things that are kind of horror with another genre. So if it's kind of like a horror thriller, or if it's like a horror drama or a horror comedy, those tend to be the ones that I love the most. But I think I can really appreciate almost any kind of a good horror movie at this point in my life.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, you seem very comfortable in these films, at least playing the protagonist in the ones that I have seen. You're, of course, in the current hit film, The Housemaid, which is part horror, part thriller. And for those who haven't seen it, it's about a wealthy couple that has hired a new housekeeper. That leads to all sorts of problems. It's a small role for you, but it's an important one coming at the very end of the film. Here I am, I'm in the theater watching the movie. When is Ellen going to be on? When is Ellen going to be on? So Ellen finally is on in the very last scene. And it is important. And you're interviewing Sydney Sweeney's character, Millie Calloway, for a potential job. So I'm curious, how long did it take to complete that one important scene at the very end?
Oh, I think it was a morning. Yeah, it was about half of a day. I think that it might have been less, but it was, I believe, the only thing that we were filming in that location. And so everybody had to load in, and then they were just moving on to do something else, I think, with the rest of their day. But yeah, it was not actually a ton of time on set.
Yeah. Were you there just the one day, or did you go a couple of days early just to watch? I'm curious, how that works when you're not in a scene. Are you encouraged to be on set, kind of observe the proceedings? I guess I'd be curious to see what's going on in the movie.
Well, when you're not in something, you are not encouraged to be on set. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure that that's really allowed.
No.
Like a set is, it is already a very chaotic place because there are a lot of people who need to be there to do their jobs. And so you don't really want extra people underfoot in those situations. It doesn't mean that there might not be, exceptions to that, but usually you're really only on set when you're filming something.
Interesting. Very interesting. So that one scene that you do with Sydney Sweeney, did you two have a chance to talk much before the scene?
No, we didn't. It's a sort of a delicate thing, I think, being a day player on something with somebody, especially if they're like an international superstar like Sydney Sweeney. And usually I just sort of take my cue from them and sometimes people are really chatty and sometimes they're not. And I think that has a lot to do with just the way that they need to work rather than necessarily who they are, right? Like, because I think for like that is everybody's attention is on this is what the work is. And I think for some people, it actually helps them with the work to be loose, to be flexible, to be chatting about something else and kind of carry that that looseness and that interplay and that spontaneity into the scene. And then I think for other people, they're just very focused on, you know, what is my character bringing into this? And I think, you know, for myself as an actor, I think I can be both ways. And that depends on what is my character and what am I doing in the scene, right? So, like, if it's a scene that I know is going to be very emotional, then I probably won't be talking to people beforehand, right? I'll be just sort of trying to stay where I, you know, gather my forces for the thing that will hopefully happen. And if it's something that is a little bit more relaxed and everyday, then actually like I don't want to be in my head. I want to make sure that I'm just interacting with people and just kind of hopefully gliding right from regular life into the take. So Sydney was lovely. And you know, did get an opportunity to tell her that I am a fan of her work, which is true. I really appreciate how grounded she is and how present. I think people who aren't actors don't realize how hard it is just to be as real as she is, and understated. And I certainly left the set with even a higher opinion of her as an actor than I had had before. So it was lovely to, you know, get to have a little conversation with her and lovely to get to work with her. But it was, you know, I wasn't immediately like, oh, hey, what'd you have for breakfast? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I have the utmost respect for actors. I honestly, I can't even imagine how you all can do that job so well. I find it absolutely fascinating, actually. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you. Well, you know, it is very it's I think about the the Yogi Berra fake truism about, you know, baseball is 90% mental and the other half is physical. I think that is literally true for acting, right? Like most of it is mental. I think not all of it, right? Like some of it is like, what is my physical body doing and how am I in space and how am I physically telling the story, right? But yeah, it's definitely, it's entirely, the whole game is about like protecting your mental state and I think really actually trying to have it be like as clean as possible, as few with as few expectations for what's about to happen. Just like I'm just gonna look and at my scene partner and see what they're doing and see how I respond to that.
Oh my gosh. So The Housemaid has done extremely well at the box office, and everything that I have read, the audience reception has been just over the moon. Everybody loves this. I'm curious, why do you think that this movie has been doing so well with the audiences that have gone out to see this film?
Well, I think obviously it started with a very, very popular set of novels by Frida McFadden. And so that has been proven already to be like really gripping to people and they really enjoy the twists and turns of the story, which I don't want to get too much into
Right.
in case people haven't seen the movie yet. I really feel like that is a satisfaction that I do not want to rob from anybody who might see the film. But I also think that Rebecca Sonnenschein is just as good as they come. Folks might know Rebecca Sonnenschein because she was the showrunner of The Boys for a number of seasons.
Okay.
And I had also been so lucky as to work in another project that she was the showrunner of Archive 81, which was a Netflix series that was adapted from a horror podcast. So that's actually like another horror thing that I've done. And I have gone in for some other things that she's written as well that were not horror. And I just think that she is so good at telling a story and she's so good at like building exactly not just the pace, but like her empathy with the different characters across lots of different things that she's adapted, right? I think that her ability to like let us see inside of the characters is really exceptional. So, I mean, then you get Paul Feig, right? And he is like such an incredibly talented storyteller as a director, right? Like he's just, I mean, he's an absolute delight to work with, by the way. Like as delightful as you think Paul Feig is, that's how delightful he is. And it's always a real pleasure to get to work with a director who is also an actor. I just find that those are often the best. And yeah, and he's no exception. So I mean, I think, you know, it's an all-star team that that they have assembled, but I also think that there's something about the story that is, it's escapist in a way because of the thriller nature of it, right? Like
Yes.
it is, it's going to kind of take our minds off of anything else that might be happening in 2026, but it's also really in our world. You know, it's also happening in the United States in 2025, and so it we also feel, I think, in times like that, watching something like that, the catharsis can feel more pure because it's like, oh, these people also know what we're going through as an underlying framework as well. So I think that that's probably has something to do with its success. It's a romp, right? Like it's a really fun movie. And so like who doesn't want to go to and just like see something that is not, we have not already seen the film version of this a million times, right? Like it's existing IP because of the novels, but at least it's like a new cast of characters for people who haven't read the novels. And I think that we're all hungry for that at this point, at least speaking for me personally.
Oh, absolutely. Like as a viewer, I found this film like amazing. Um, I I was kind of like on the edge, like, should I go watch this? Should I just wait? But you go watch it. I found it was like amazing. It was unsettling in such a cool way. Um, I enjoyed this movie so much. And I'm curious, what was your reaction the first time that you saw this movie all put together on the big screen?
Oh, it was really wonderful. Yeah, it was so fun. And I mean, I think what was really interesting is seeing the ways in which it was different from the screenplay that I remembered reading, and just kind of noting, oh, I see that happens even to Rebecca Sonnenschein, which I think she was also executive producing. So she was also like, yeah, probably actually we don't need these scenes, or like, ooh, let's do this instead because this is the space that we have, or like whatever were the reasons behind that. But that's a really interesting always to see, because I feel like, no, it's certainly happened before. I was just running through my other experiences of being in films. You always shoot stuff that then like doesn't end up making it into the movie, because once you watch everything together, then it's kind of another like cut on pace, and like, you know, how are we going to really make sure that this story is very propulsive? I was very delighted. I was really hoping that I would see Amanda Seyfried, because I've just been a huge, huge fan of hers for such a long time. I think she's an incredibly talented character actor.
That's
I think
right.
people don't realize that, like, I think people sometimes think character actor is a type. And actually, I think it's a like, what is your hook, right? As an actor, right? Is it do you generate the energy for your performance by being an interesting and present version of yourself? Or do you generate that energy by sort of like the distance between yourself and the other thing that you get to be? And I feel like very clearly Amanda Seyfried, even though, you know, she's model gorgeous, is a character actor. And it's so fun to get to watch her really lean into all of the slaloms in this movie, and just to the scenery in the best possible way. So that was I had an anticipation of her performance being every bit as good as it was, but it was just really, really delightful to see.
Oh my gosh, that performance, it blew me away. I thought I thought she was amazing. Just to go from, you know, nice at the very beginning, and then just have these kind of like manic episodes. She did so well. I was so impressed by her. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and I mean it's a fantastic cast overall. Brandon Sklenar just is great. Like I might be mispronouncing his name. Sorry, Brandon. I also didn't meet him. I always love to see Elizabeth Perkins in anything, and I felt like a lot of the um a lot of the day players out of New York were just really great. We're just really like got the tone, and of course that's Paul. I feel like when you see a movie and the tone is so consistent to every single sort of person who has one line, that's always really good directing, which obviously I personally experienced, but it was delightful to see it in the film.
Well, I agree with both of you. I really enjoyed the film. The experience of being there in the theater on the big screen only added to it. One thing I didn't like in the movie, there is that one scene with a pair of pliers and a tooth. That was a bit difficult to watch. But other than that,
But that's the point, right? Like it's supposed to be difficult to watch. Like I think
oh
I think
yeah,
that's my Burbo to Winstead journey is like now I'm like, ooh, it's so squirmy. Ooh, it's so gross. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it's fantastic. I love that they're just like, yeah, we've got to turn it up to 11.
We continue our conversation with Ellen Adair. Ellen, let's talk about some of your other films. And one I really like is one you mentioned a few minutes ago. Came out in 2019. It's called Trick. It's about a high school student turned killer who comes back every Halloween to seek out new victims. So in this one, you have a very prominent role. You play the local sheriff, and you do it in very believable fashion. I'm curious, how much research did you do about working in law enforcement? It seemed to me you did a lot.
Oh, that's very kind of you. So I did some internet research. I was definitely like, what is a sheriff? What would my responsibilities be? How would I have gotten to this office, etc. Um, and talked a little bit with Patrick about it. But the fact is, I was cast in that movie not that long before it started shooting. I can't remember. I think
Mm.
it was less than a month, certainly. So I did not, not like I necessarily would even know how to do this without a big studio. This was, it was originally shot as an independent film, a big studio kind of backing that. I did not like get to shadow a police officer for a day or something like that. That would have been awesome. Yeah, I think I also, something that as I mentioned, that I love to do homework of any kind, really. It's probably why I'm a writer, right? Is the aphorism about writers is just it's like having homework for the entire rest of your life and then you die. Anyway, I also just watched a lot of stuff with cops in it and was just like, I buy that behavior, I don't buy that behavior, which is basically the same thing that I did when I played Marie Antoinette, for example, right? Like I would watch movies and like we don't really know how Marie Antoinette behaved, but I would watch like, what behavior do I buy, what behavior do I not buy. I do remember actually like clandestinely watching just police officers in MTA in New York, you know what I mean? Just like looking at their behavior and how
Yeah.
they hung onto their belts and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically what it is. But a fun little fact about that movie is I think I don't remember if there's like a real shot of it or not, but there's a moment where you see that my photograph is on the wall having been elected sheriff, and then there's the photograph of like the previous sheriff, and that is my dad. they
Oh,
they photoshopped my dad into a sheriff uniform, because I think there's some mention in the movie, and I'm sorry, it's just that this was like 7 years ago when we shot this movie. No, I can't
yeah.
do math. Yes, actually, that is right. Oh my God, it's 2026.
Yeah.
So,
7 years.
yeah, so they were like, can we get a picture of your dad to Photoshop into a sheriff
Hmm.
uniform? Because it was actually that Sheriff Lisa Jane's dad had been the previous sheriff. So, fun
Right.
facts.
Yeah, very nice. This film also gave you a chance to work with two brand name actors, Omar Epps and Tom Atkins. Had the pleasure of meeting Tom Atkins at horror conventions. I'm curious about the experience of working with those two actors.
Oh, it was really wonderful. Yeah, yeah. Tom is such a sweetheart, actually. I mean, I often find this, having done a number of horror projects at this point, that I feel like everybody's actually really kind to each other on horror projects. I don't know if it's just because like we know that we need it because of the darkness of the material, or I don't know if it's like we get to exercise all of any dark thoughts that we might have doing the material, and so everything off camera is just like laughs and jokes. But Tom is really such a kind man. That was my experience. I would imagine that was also your experience, getting to meet him at a convention.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really great to work with Omar. He is such an incredibly talented actor. I had admired him for a very long time, and he's very, as like acting with him. He is so real. He's very he's contained, but in a good way, that made it just very easy to act opposite him. And he was a lovely person, and yeah, it was a joy to get to work with him. Also, horror legend Jamie Kennedy in that movie. I don't know if you were about to mention that, but
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Jamie is a wild man. He is definitely the kind who is like always making jokes on set. So
Yeah.
it was great to get to work with him as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. The twist ending didn't see coming at all. I thought that was fantastically done. A couple other horror movies I want to touch upon. 2022, you starred in a film called Cryptid, which is set in a small town in Maine, not one of the Stephen King towns, but it's where a man has been brutally killed. You play Harriet, a photojournalist who assists a newspaper writer who's really struggling, but he's investigating the incident, the subsequent killings. He thinks there's some sort of a unusual, unknown creature that is responsible. It's a slower paced film, but one of the things I really liked about the movie, you and the actor playing the reporter, Nicholas Baruti, I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Yep, you got it.
Wonderful chemistry between you in the film. It seemed like you two were longtime friends in real life.
Well, I don't know if you've just done your research, but as a matter of fact, Nick and I had done another movie together before, and it was really, yeah. So that was a movie that he had written, and it's called Sins of the Sun. And we did immediately hit it off in that film, like just had the very best time. And it's funny that one of the things that I do when I am auditioning for something is that I try to imagine who's the person that I'm talking to that I know in real life, right? So I try to cast the person that I am going to be doing my audition scene opposite, right? Because actually, I mean, in the old days I was doing it with like the casting director or whoever, and like now it's everything is self-tapes. So I remember being like, Nick, I'm going to pretend that it's my friend Nick, because I just feel like he would get the vibe of this character, and just to kind of the not like our relationship is exactly the same, but I was just like, I could feel the same kind of like push pull. And then in the callbacks, I like walk in and Nick is there, and I was just like, no way. So it was pretty magical. And I do think that the chemistry that the two of us have in real life, and also just the history that we had as friends, and having already had such a great time playing opposite each other in another movie, probably contributed to like the both of us getting that movie. But I just had the best time shooting that film. Really, I think some of it is, so we shot it in October of 2020, originally scheduled to shoot in April of 2020, and obviously that didn't happen. But I think it was so much better for having to like wait to get to film the movie a little bit. And also like we'd all, you know, been stir crazy, not getting to see any of the other kids in class. And so the idea of like, oh, we all get to come together and actually make something. And we were just, the whole film was in a, because it was not a very large crew, was just in a pod. Nobody got COVID. Everybody was fine. And just like had the best time shooting that movie. And Brad Rigo is the writer director of that film. And I just think he's incredibly talented at building character, at building interesting situations. And I would just like to shout out that he is hopefully going to have another movie coming out pretty soon, which is completed. I am not in it. I'm just pitching it because I am just a huge fan of Brad and Brad's work. It's called Goetic. And I have seen a screening of the film, despite the fact that he's just like shopping it around for distribution. But it is, I would say that it's a little bit more tightly paced than Cryptid was. It is contained. It will definitely have some squirmy moments. But yeah, I think having read also some of Brad's other scripts, I think he's really a filmmaker to keep an eye on.
Nice. Then in 2023, you starred in a very interesting movie called Herd. You play a character named Jamie Miller who goes on a canoe trip with her wife, Alex. The couple obviously have a strained relationship, although it's not initially clear what the problem is. Then all of that gets pushed aside when an emergency happens. A viral outbreak turns many of the local people into zombie-type creatures. This is a film, it's a zombie film that really, though, is not a zombie film because they're not the primary villains, if you will.
Yeah, I love this movie so much. I think it might be like one of the two things that I am most proud of that I have ever done in my career, or like maybe three. I love this movie so much. And it could be that I really love this movie because it is a kind of a horror action drama, right? Like I actually love it when there's sort of like genre mashups. And I think that is one of the reasons that sadly the film, I don't know, has a lot of people mad at it online because there aren't as many zombies as they thought there were going to be based on the trailer, which is like a fair assessment. But I also feel like I think it's a beautiful film. I love this movie so, so much. If I could take, like 3 projects that I did on my spiritual desert island, this would be one of them. And so I really would love for audiences to give it another chance, especially maybe with the understanding that like it's not really about the zombies. There's not going to be that many zombies. It's really a drama. And one of the things that I love so much about it, and I think one of the things when I first read the script, I just had this, I have to do this movie. And some of that was that it just almost felt spiritually like Jamie just settled in my body, and like I knew exactly who she was and like exactly what my version of her was, and just felt that very strongly. But I also think, so I first read the script in 2021, and it felt to me like it was so clearly talking about the ways in which human beings break themselves into factions and make a decision about the othering of someone else. So all the ways in which we sort of say, you're over there, you're different from me, we're over here, we're like this. And that is perhaps a natural impulse, but that I think that doesn't make it right, and that we need to examine that. And I think we need to examine that in this country more than ever, although I really felt that in 2021 as well, just to see the way that the existence of a global pandemic, which would be the kind of thing that you would think everybody could get together, everybody could rally around this. And I'm not entirely just blaming each individual person. I think obviously there were some politicians who decided, like, aha, how can we weaponize this to make sure that people are still divided? How can we make sure that they're still distrusting their neighbor, fighting each other, right? So that happens. But I also think that it can be a tendency that we have as people because it's a way to feel better about ourselves if we feel like we're different. And I think there is also an option to feel better about ourselves because we feel like we're the same. And so I think that this movie is I'm being way more didactic about this than this movie is, right? But this is what I received from the movie, and like why it means so much to me is that I think like deeply embedded in a fun sort of like zombie action thriller, which also has a love story to it. I think that this is the thing that it's kind of looking at, and that's something that is very close to my heart as a concern about our existence as a species. And so I think this movie does a really good job of looking at that.
I think everybody expected the herd in the title to refer to the zombies, but the herd really refers to that community that has all these crazy rules and doesn't have any tolerance for anybody that has been infected. I think that's the real herd. I don't know if that's what the director intended, but that's what I came out of it with.
Fully. Yeah, I think he was intending for it to read as herd of zombies, but also herd mentality.
Yeah, right. Last question
And that
on
is
this movie.
Stephen Pierce,
You
by
worked
the
with
way.
Corbin Burnson. Okay.
I just wanted to credit
Corbin
the
Burnson.
director.
Sure, absolutely. Burnson's in the movie. He plays your father. He was great in the Dentist films. He was great in Psych for so many years, playing Sean's father. What was it like working with him?
Incredible. Incredible. Look, I mean, any fan of baseball movies has to be like, oh my God, I get to be in a movie with Corbin Burnson. Like, look, clearly, obviously, he's done so many things, but yes. But Corbin Burnson is, I mean, a truly, truly delightful person to have a conversation with. Very, very like warm and open and welcoming, but also like a real clown. And I say that in the most positive way. And what I mean by that is he's always looking for an opportunity to do a bit. And I again, like I loved it. And I loved how acting with him, how spontaneous he was. Like I loved that he would just be like, I'm gonna just try this. And then I would just get to react to that, which is like the most fun thing that an actor can do. And I just remember there was something where, and this was even like a flashback, and Corbin was just really focused on figuring out how, even though what he was doing was he just had to kind of like yell at me as like a I'm your drunk dad flashback, but he was really focused on how could he figure out how to kick an empty beer can off of the staircase. And that's what I mean about like he's always trying to do a bit. I also remember he was like there was one take where he like came in singing row 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 your boat, and I broke. Like it didn't matter because I was off camera, but like it was such a delight working with him. Again, a sort of a situation where I would say, imagine how delightful you think it's going to be to work with Corbin Burnson. That's how delightful it actually was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. That is so cool. I remember him from so many different projects, and I go back as far as LA Law, I believe. So just amazing. I have a little question for you. You have written a screenplay for a new movie that's not been released yet. It's called Damned If You Do. Can you share a little bit about this project and when people might be able to see it?
Absolutely. Yes. So we have it premiered at Screamfest in LA last October, and then we played Film Quest, and actually just this past Friday we had our East Coast premiere at Dances with Films. That was really exciting. It was a gigantic theater that was completely sold out, which was just a really great experience. And we do have a sales agent for the film now. So they're going to be shopping it around to distributors. I don't have any more information than that, but my assumption is people will be able to watch it at some point this year. I do know from past experience with other films that sometimes you'll even get a distribution deal, but they'll be like, actually, we think it's going to be make the most sense for you to release it 9 months from now, right? So just us getting a distribution deal doesn't even mean like, great, then like, it'll be on a streaming platform next month, right? So I don't really know anything about the timing except for that there is kind of like positive momentum there. And thank you so much for bringing this up, because of course I think the true end to my horror journey is that my husband and I wrote a horror comedy together. And
Wow.
yeah, exactly. So, and we're working on another horror comedy right now, and have a bunch of other genre ideas that we're really excited to just continue working on. And I do want to prepare audience expectations much as with Heard. When we wrote it, we were kind of like, a director could take this and could skew it more in the comedy or skew it more in the horror direction. And these two directors, the wonderful Jake Rubin and Evan Metzold, skewed it a little bit more in the comedy direction, which is fine. We were like, it's whatever you want to do with this. But I would describe it more as a dark comedy with some horror tropes. So basically, it's about a group of teenagers who do a deal with the devil at their high school graduation for 25 years of unlimited power, but then their souls will come due at their 25th high school reunion. So the majority of the film actually takes place with the 43-year-old versions of the teenagers at the high school reunion, trying to figure out how are they going to get out of this deal that they did with the devil. And it has Kate Siegel in it, which many horror fans would be familiar with. And also Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows plays one of our leads. And then we also have Ginger Gonzaga from She-Hulk, and Paulo Costanzo from like a million things, and Beth Dover from Orange is the New Black. And so it's a really, like, also Molly Bernard, Ed Weeks, Lisa Traeger. It's a stacked cast. It's ridiculous, the people that we got to do our movie. So it's really, yeah, the film won Best Ensemble at Film Quest, and we were nominated for Best Screenplay, which is nice. But I really feel like the ensemble performances truly carry the film. And it is, I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but I think it's really a fun time.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That is like so amazing. And to know that you have other projects coming up too. Is that information, like, are you going to have that posted on your website so fans can be prepared to go watch it when it's available? Like, will you have that?
Absolutely. Yes, I will. Yeah. So I have a website, justmyname.com, and I have one of the tabs is writing. And so, for example, there is another film that is not at all horror that I adapted. I co-wrote with the author of a memoir who basically wanted to adapt part of their memoir into a movie. And I said, I can do that for you. So that is already on YouTube, and it is already on my website. And so when there's more information about how to see Damned If You Do, then absolutely, it will go on my website. And I will imagine that I will post on it on social media as well.
Oh, wonderful. So my last question is there anything that you've discovered about yourself and your level of creativity through writing that has totally floored you, surprised you? Has there anything that has really stood out for you?
What kind of a thing do you mean?
Are you surprised at how creative that you've become with writing? Do you prefer writing, like the the writing aspect of your journey over the acting profession?
I think I do.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't feel like a little hesitant somehow to be honest about that. But yeah, I do prefer writing. And I think it's just because I get to be more people when I'm writing, and I am not confined by what I look like I might get cast as.
Mm.
Like I can create any kind of a character and then get to inhabit their brain and get to decide what they do next.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that certainly drives me in my creativity is not like I mean, I think I am also a character actor. I'm not nearly as talented as Amanda Seyfried, but I do know like how do I hook into something? I hook into like, oh, not like the interesting version of me. Like that's actually sort of
Mhm.
hard for me to hook into. But when I think about, oh, well, who's this person and how do they see the world and how do they behave and how do they treat other people and how is that different? That's always what's interesting to me.
Mm.
And I think that that's the thing that is also so satisfying about writing is really like I need to fully immerse myself in another perspective in order to write it.
Right.
And that there are times where and I find this more because I also write novels, not that have been published yet, but uh I, I really feel that when you're writing a novel and so you're really just in one person's perspective and rather than in a scene you're kind of toggling back and forth. um I will come out of it sometimes and be surprised to like see my life right, be surprised to see this other reality because I've been sort of so deep in imagining this other thing. And I think that all human beings are infinity and that this is one of the reasons why we need stories. And I think it's also why we need any kind of catharsis. I think sports is a very important kind of catharsis. It's a narrative that we just don't know how it's going to end. And so I think that being a viewer of these things, we also get to experience kind of running our emotions on the hamster wheel of these other scenarios, that our souls are large enough for those ideas and for those feelings, but our kind of like everyday life of answering emails does not provide us the venue to feel all of those things. But we're still, all of us, large enough to feel them, and we just want to feel them. And so I feel like writing or acting is like mainlining feeling something else, right? It's like
Right.
the even more just straight to the spiritual source of like something other than what are the quotidian aspects of my life. And so that's why I think I just honestly feel like I am addicted to writing and acting, but I think to me they're the same thing because they're about getting outside of myself,
Mhm.
and I think they're about communing with something else. Uh like I think as a an actor, I've always kind of felt like there's a a sort of a spirit of the character that I can kind of talk to, and they just sit in my body differently than I sit in my body. And
Mhm.
I feel like nothing for me has confirmed at least this as a framework that is helpful to me than writing, when I also feel like it's not always me doing it, right? Like often I'm just kind of like, okay, to the character, like what now, what do you think, what do you want to do now? And they feel so distinct to me that I could never mistake one character's point of view for another character's point of view, because I almost feel like they're out there and I'm just like they're just like a satellite and I'm just pinging my ideas off of them and having what they think or what they want to do come back to me. So it's truly my favorite thing in the world.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that is so inspiring. And I really appreciate that answer.
Well, thank you for clarifying. And thank you for asking such a good question. Oh my goodness.
Ellen, we must talk about one more thing before we let you go. We absolutely must talk some baseball. There is your podcast that you and your husband, Eric Gilde, do. It's called Take Me Into the Ballgame. You go in depth on baseball movies each episode. So I have to ask you, what is your favorite baseball film of all time? Do you have one that separates from the others?
What an excellent question. So I want to clarify to your wonderful listeners that in fact what we do on our podcast is we grade baseball movies on the 20 to 80 scouting scale used for baseball prospects. And the absurd idea that we are scouts scouting these movies as prospects, like I can never get enough of this truly absurd fiction. That I'm like, yeah, my scouting director is not going to like it if I say this anyway. So I I often hedge this a little bit and be like, there are 5 best baseball movies. But I will say, because you said favorite, my favorite baseball movie is A League of Their Own. I think it is a perfect film. I think everything about it, from the script to the direction to every single performance, like I could not change a hair on its head. And it is a good time. And there's a lot of great baseball action in it, right? Like, so there's some really excellent movies that I think are baseball movies, but like maybe you don't get as much great baseball action as you kind of think that you do. There's some great baseball sequences in A League of Their Own. But it's also, I think, uplifting ultimately. Like, for example, I think one of the best movies with baseball in it of all time, and even a lot of baseball, is the film Sugar by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck. It's really more of an immigrant story than it is a baseball story. It is a beautiful film, and I love it so much. But if you're like, it's January, and so it's been a while since we had baseball, and it's going to be a little while yet till we have it again. I'm not like, I'm going to put on Sugar, right? Like, but I could be like, I'm going to put on A League of Their Own and just feel the summer waft over me from the TV. So yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
One of my favorite films of all time, just period, baseball or not.
Well, A League of Their Own is my favorite as well. I met the actress Bitty Schramm, who was in Cooperstown last Hall of Fame weekend back in July. And I also know Doug Decker, who has a small role as kind of an extra in the film, and he's gone on to do horror movies. He lives in Oneonta, which, he doesn't live there, but he used to work in Oneonta, has a lot of ties to Central New York. So it's a great film. I love it. I have to say, though, I'm a bit ashamed that I have not seen Sugar. I've heard wonderful things about it, but I've not yet seen it. So I've got to do that.
You do need to see it. I would also recommend another baseball movie that like a lot of people haven't seen is Everybody Wants Some! ! Very low amount of baseball, but like it's Linklater. It's just like, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant movie. It is very fun and it's just a delight. So if you haven't seen that one, I'd also recommend it.
Is that kind of an Animal House baseball type movie?
Oh, I mean, it's a little bit more Dazed and Confused than Animal House, right? Like in terms of the tone. Was sort of, the director described it as like the spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused. And it's got that sort of like ensemble cast, and it's a comedy, but it's like a grounded comedy. And definitely I feel like playing off of just like real life observation and kind of like different types on this college baseball team, and not very much baseball in it, like kind of stretching it to call it a baseball movie, like not necessarily to the extent of, Ben Lindbergh on Effectively Wild calling Knives Out a baseball movie, which I know that's actually a Sam Miller thing, but it's about baseball players. So there's more baseball in it than that. So I definitely recommend Sugar as just one of the best baseball movies that's ever existed. But I think that more people should see Everybody Wants Some. It's a great film.
All right, last question. And I think I know the answer, but I ask it anyway. Would you like to star in a baseball film?
Oh my God, of course, that would be my dream. Yes, there's nothing I'd love more than starring in a baseball film. Not maybe a ton of roles for me in a baseball film, but I do have an idea for a baseball film that I could probably be in right now, but I feel like the likelihood of me writing it and it getting made and me then not being too old to be in it, probably not. But who knows?
I would love to see it happen. Obviously, you'd be thrilled, and I think you'd be great in it. Whatever role they came up with, I think it would. You got to work on this. Get to work on this, okay?
It's hard to make baseball movies these days. Oh my gosh, if I'm promoting other people's baseball movies, how did I not think of EFIS? Have you seen EFIS? It came out in 2024. It is as good as any baseball movie ever. It's about the last day in a kind of like men's rec league that they're going to be playing a baseball game because they're going to be plowing over the field. I'm doing a bad pitch for this, but it is such a good film, and it feels in many ways like the 2024's answer to a baseball film, because obviously it's so it's so expensive to make like a big Major League Baseball movie, and that's sort of not the direction that so many films are heading in these days, right? Like even the big studios are like, how can we make a contained horror movie that's just taking place in one house? But it's like a brilliant and beautiful film, and anybody who loves baseball or who likes a little bit more existential film storytelling, I think will really enjoy it. But it's also hilarious. Like it really just works on so many different levels as a hangout movie as well. Carson Lund is the director, and he's a genius. So Carson, if you want to make another baseball movie, and then let me please be in it, that would solve our problems.
Our guest has been a wonderful actor, baseball fan, podcaster, writer, Ellen Adair. Again, Ellen's podcast is called Take Me Into the Ball Game, and it can be found on most of the major streaming platforms. Fun show done with your husband, Eric Gilde. And we look forward to future films. And of course, Ellen can be seen currently in the hit The Housemaid. Ellen, it's been wonderful. We thank you for your time and your patience as I waited through some technical difficulties. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our guest, Ellen Adair, we thank Ellen. We thank, of course, Tracy for her usual contributions as co-host and executive producer of this little program that we call the Ghostly Gallery. We thank you for joining us in this Museum of the Macabre, and we do hope we'll see you again next time right here in the aforementioned Ghostly Gallery.